attribute to everyone else bad intent when it comes to political spending and politics, but to yourself it's totally fine. And when it comes to other media entities that give in-kind contributions on a regular basis through their coverage, this is when the New York Times, which is biased to the left, spends an inordinate amount of time and money reporting on Mitt Romney's idiotic stories about how he was in high school and cutting a gay kid's hair in 1932. If you're saying to me that that is less impactful on the political sphere than a corporation, which is a group giving money to a political candidate for purposes of supporting that candidate, I fail to see how you can say for yourself that you are innocent in this, but everyone else is guilty. I don't believe that. Either everyone's guilty or everybody is innocent, or if you can find the actual cases of guilt where there's a quid pro quo, then we agree. That's prosecutable.
The real way to weaken Hamas is to show that people who accept Israel's right to exist and pursue their grievances non-violently, as people in villages like Bilin and Nabi Saleh have been doing for a decade now, that they get results. And tragically, this Israeli government has not done that.
Ben, do you want to take a crack at that?
Sure. I mean, the nonsensical idea that Hamas is firing rockets because somehow they're mad about imprisonments in the West Bank, or that they would stop firing rockets if Israel were to release the prisoners that it holds is nonsensical and idiotic. In fact, Israel has just done multiple prisoner releases with regard to terrorists vis-a-vis Israeli soldiers, and that has not seemed to quell anything with regard to Hamas. When Israel pulled out of the Gaza Strip in 2005, that launched the election of Hamas and then further violence. The idea that if Israel makes more and more concessions, that will somehow not embolden Hamas as opposed to creating a movement against Hamas, that has not been proved by history in any way, shape, or form. Peter always finds a way to ensure that Israeli policy is somehow responsible for rockets falling on Israeli cities when it's really Hamas doing the firing.
I'm actually talking about Palestinians who protest non-violently in conjunction with Israelis. I mean, the irony to me is that actually Ben and Hamas have an enormous amount. Hamas doesn't believe that Jews should be allowed to live in the state of Israel. Ben has said that Palestinians don't have the right to live in Israel, West Bank, or Gaza because he's called for physically expelling all of them. So, in fact, the true moral and ideological partners, Ben, are you and Hamas.
Ben, go ahead.
That is absolute nonsense, Peter.
You didn't write that
my position on Israel was made clear in the 2013 column, and to call me equivalent with people who are murdering Jews is insanity. It's beyond insulting. And if there's anybody who's emboldening Hamas to kill more children, it is you, because it is your policies which have emboldened Hamas. They know that people like you are going to get on American television and talk about how the Palestinians are meek victims, and whenever they fire rockets, it can be justified by Israeli policy. Hamas celebrates every moment you're on television.
I mean, is there any value to saying that there is some inherent bias, this sort of fear of difference, of something that seems other, and that it's valuable to sort of look at that and try to call attention to it so we can stop it?
How about combating actual acts of racism? How about singling out racism and then actually doing something about it, as opposed to doing this kind of Marxist newspeak in which we go through everybody's hidden actions? You know, I'm sensing a real sort of underlying, I don't know, racial bias to this whole segment. Robert, I find you to be racially biased. I find you to be insensitive, bigoted, and misogynist based on everything that you've said. It may be hidden. Maybe I can't detect it, but we all know it's there. So perhaps you should go through this program. At the end of the program, you will feel free. You'll feel better about yourself, and you'll feel more.
People on Comey are seriously the worst people in the world. So, who are the Democrats trotting out to yell at Comey? Well, they've decided to unleash former AG Eric Holder, the most corrupt attorney general in American history, a dude under contempt of Congress who facilitated gun running in Fast and Furious and lied about it, who oversaw the transition of the DOJ into a racial grievance squad, who used the DOJ to target journalists like James Rosen, who labeled Fort Hood workplace violence. He's their go-to guy, criticizing James Comey on ethics. And then there's Senator Harry Reid, a sociopathic liar who once said that Mitt Romney paid no taxes without any evidence, and then said that was fine just so long as Romney lost. Now Reid is accusing Comey of violating the Hatch Act. He isn't. And stating that Comey is covering up Trump's relationship with Russia with no evidence. And the media naturally are taking it seriously because, of course, they are. Finally, President Obama is now openly campaigning for someone under 3 FBI investigations. Hillary's private server remains under investigation. Anthony Weiner's device, his other device, is now under investigation. And the Clinton Foundation... Yeah, and the Clinton Foundation is under investigation, too. Barack Obama is going around telling Americans Hillary is the most qualified president ever. Yes, for prison, this is the best. It's hilarious. Should Comey have dropped this bombshell? Well, he had no other choice after killing the private server investigation for political reasons back in July. If he'd waited 2 weeks to drop this information, people would rightly have said that he stopped the investigation back in July for Hillary and started it up again after her election. Well, now Hillary's got troubles, and it sure is sweet. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro